So in Thursday night's Republican presidential debate, the first to speak, the first politician to speak, was John Kasich. And here's what he had to say. He says, well, thank you. You know, I look in the faces of people all across this country, and I know they want to be hopeful. And many are hopeful. Look, I can take conservative policies to the White House, to Washington, to restore the strength of our economy, but I also want to transfer power, money, and influence to where you live, because I believe the strength in this country rests in the neighborhoods, the families, the communities, and our states. And I believe it's a new partnership, a partnership that can allow us to restore the strength of America and strengthen America for the best century we've ever had. Now, overall, I don't have anything I hate about this. He is definitely the most logical and sound-minded politician in this race so far, and I think I agree with him the most on most of the policies. That doesn't go to say he still has some issues that are a little iffy, because conservative policies to restore the economy, I don't know if he's talking about trickle-down economics, because trickle-down economics is one of the worst policies for economic growth in the middle class I've ever heard. It makes the poor poorer, makes the rich richer. It's been proven to not work. So, to wrap that up, Kasich, I don't hate him, I don't love him. If I had a choice, I would want him to be the Republican candidate, because I loathe seeing Trump, Rubio, or Cruz up there. It makes me sick to my stomach, but it looks like that's what's going to happen. So the second candidate to speak was Rubio, and here's what he had to say. Every election is important. I believe this is the most important election in a generation. But what's at stake in this election is not simply what party is going to be in charge or which candidate wins. What's at stake is our identity as a nation and as a people. For over 2 centuries, America has been an exceptional nation, and now the time has come for this generation to do what it must do to keep it that way. If we make the right choice in this election, our children are going to be the freest and most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. And the 21st century is going to be a new American century. Now, this is one of the guys I hate, and I think you can see why. Because Kasich came in here and laid it out and said, look, I can go into Washington and change things and better our economy. I don't know if his policies would, but he says, I can better the economy, I can change all this stuff. But what I want to do is give you the power back. I want to put it back into our neighborhoods, and the families, and the communities. Now, Rubio comes in and simply states that America is an exceptional nation. It's basically a drawed-out version of that simple sentence. Now, do I agree with that? Yes, we are an exceptional nation, but you know what else is an exceptional nation? The UK, France, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Germany, Japan. All these nations are great nations because they're part of the first world. The first world is obviously a better situation than the third world. It's just blatantly obvious. Now, when I say that I agree with the exceptional nation, I think my point has already been given, has already been proven. Not proven, I'm sorry. Has already been conveyed. I think America is a great nation, yes. But a great nation, being a great nation does not mean everything you do is good. It does not mean that you are free. It does not mean any of that. Great Britain, when it was under monarchy, was an amazing nation. It had the largest empire in history. That's one of the best nations in the world by certain standards. So we shouldn't let our nation become the next Great Britain and create a big empire, because intervention in other nations in the Middle East and possibly Latin America, I've heard talk of that as well, which is awful, but any interference in any foreign nation is imperialism. And us as an exceptional nation should strive to combat imperialism. So Senator Cruz was asked to speak next, and here's what he said. 59 years ago, Florida welcomed my father to America as he stepped off the ferry boat from Cuba onto Key West. He was 18. He was filled with hopes and dreams, and yet he was in the freest land on the face of the earth. This debate is not about insults. It's not about attacks. It's not about any of the individuals on this stage. This election is about you and your children. It's about the freedom America has always had and making sure that that freedom is there for the next generation. That we stop Washington from standing in the way of the hardworking taxpayers of America. Many things that I find hilariously ironic and bad overall about his statements. First of all, his father was an immigrant. What is Ted Cruz against, or says he is against? Immigration. You're against the very thing that brought your family here. Think about it for a second. Why is that so stupid? Because, hey look, you're an extremely successful senator. Why are you against something like that? It makes no sense. Second of all, I'm really confused by the sentence, he was filled with hopes and dreams, and yet he was in the freest land on the face of the earth. Why the yet? Because if you are on the freest land on the face of the earth, which at the time, most likely, I believe, basically we were. Actually, I'm going to retract that statement. Most likely not. Because 59 years ago, Europe was on the same road as we were. We were just as free as most European nations. But he says, and yet, almost in spite of him having hopes and dreams, he was in the first land on the face of the earth. I assume he's trying to say that once you're in America, all your dreams have come true. You're in Wonderland. You're Alice in Wonderland, in the joyful world. But no. It's pitiful, because I'm sure his father came to America and he worked his ass off. And he worked hard to get Senator Cruz a stable life. And of course he does now have a stable life because he is a senator. Now he also goes to say this debate is not about insults, attacks, or any individual. It's three things. But what about when you said that Ben Carson was dropping out of the race when he went to Florida? What about when all those times in the debates that you joined in on the stupid banter between all of the Republicans? Do you really expect us to believe that you don't know that you have been part of the insult attacks and trying to make this about individuals on the stage? You were part of this, you hypocrite. And the last thing I want to address about this statement is he talks about trying to stop Washington when, excuse me, my friend, you are part of Washington. Don't try to play it off like you're some just state guy. I know you're trying to, because that's what Republicans love, the state government, but you are not that. You're a senator. You're part of Washington. If you were a governor, I'd be like, okay, yeah, he's probably for the states. Yeah, why not? Because he's a governor. Like, you can't get higher in just state legislation. But you're a senator. You're in Washington. Yes, you're the senator for Texas, I believe. But you're a senator. You're a senator. And you're saying that we have to stop Washington, aka stop me. So the last person asked for an opening statement in the debate is, you guessed it, Donald Trump. And what he said was the typical Donald Trump BS. And he says, one of the biggest political events anywhere in the world is happening right now with the Republican Party. Sorry. Millions and millions of people are going out to the polls and they're voting. They're voting out of enthusiasm. They're voting out of love. Some of these people, frankly, have never voted before. 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. Never voted before. We're taking people from the Democratic Party. We're taking people as independents, and they're all coming out, and the whole world is talking about it. It's very exciting. I think, frankly, the Republican establishment, or whatever you want to call it, should embrace what's happening. We're having millions of extra people join. We are going to beat the Democrats. We are going to beat Hillary or whoever it may be, and we're going to beat them soundly. Now, of course, it's Donald Trump. You can't really get to anything he's actually trying to convey because he's kind of insane. But I really do think that what he's saying about the taking people from the Democratic Party, I think it's complete bullshit. It sounds just dumb. It sounds like he's just pulling it out of his ass. I don't think that's actually what's happening. I would believe the independents. I believe that that's happening, but I'm skeptical that he's pulling millions and millions of people from other parties into the Republican debate. I think that's a load of shit. And he talks about how the whole world is talking about this Democratic versus Republican bullshit through the entire world doing it. And the reason they are, Mr. Trump, is because they all are fucking terrified. Because if you got a big red button that said nuke, you are a short-tempered, hot-headed, authoritarian prick who thinks that suing and simply threatening people solves problems. Newsflash, buddy, on the international field, you can't sue anyone. You cannot sue a country for offending you. You cannot sue a country because they take something from you. And plus you wouldn't even sue them. You'd go straight to war. That's the last thing anyone wants.